Hi everyone, welcome to our Bible study. Today we are talking about Psalm 21. We're going to talk about David, and David is talking about the Lord establishing him on the throne, and David is rejoicing in that fact, and also God's power over his enemies and over wickedness. So let's get into it. The PDF outline is available online if you want to download it for yourself. It's free. And as far as our first section, I kind of already gave this one away. Psalm 21 was written by King David. As far as New Testament references to Psalm 21, I'm not aware of any in the New Testament. We have two themes today. I think this chapter is pretty easily broken down into two sections. The first theme, the power and the authority of kings, is given by God and sustained by God. And then number two, none of God's enemies are going to escape his power. His power is just too great. Now, I have included a definition, and it's the word Selah, which I think we've defined now 2 or 3 times in our studies because it's appeared before. I did include it here because we see it in this chapter, but I won't take the time to go through it again. It is there if you want to reference it. The real reason is because I've been really bad at keeping these studies under 5 minutes lately, and so I'm trying to do better. So now let's move over to page number 2 and talk about our outline. As I mentioned, this chapter breaks down pretty naturally into 2 sections. The first one is verses 1 through 7, and the second one is verses 8 through 13. So our first section is titled, The King Worships the Lord. David begins Psalm 21 rejoicing in the Lord for the way that the Lord has blessed his reign. If you didn't know, David was king over Israel. So he's a king over a people. He's rejoicing in the way that God has blessed him and set him on the throne. David knew that it was not his own strength, but it was the Lord's strength that established him on the throne of Israel and made him a king. The wealth of the king, he knew, was from the Lord, and it was only the Lord who put the crown on his head, not necessarily because of any merit of his own. He wasn't in some kind of line of succession of the king. No, it was God who did that, and he knew that. David wrote, quote, "His glory is great through your salvation," basically saying, my glory, the king, my glory is great because of God's salvation, not necessarily because of me. David acknowledged that his ability to remain on the throne also depended on God, and he would have no majesty or splendor apart from God. So we see that unlike a lot of the other kings that will come after David, even after David ascended the throne of Israel, he remained humble, and that's part of the reason that he was a man after God's own heart. Our second section, David goes from talking about God establishing who he wants on the throne to God throwing down any of his enemies, any of his opposers that he wants to. God will defeat his enemies, verses 8 through 13. So God is going to find all of his enemies, David said, and he's going to destroy them. He's going to wipe them out. Quote, "The Lord will swallow them up in his wrath, and fire will consume them." That's verse 9. No evil person who devises evil plans or wicked plans is going to have success against God ultimately. This is what David concludes. And then he finishes the psalm basically with a statement of praise, saying, quote, "Be exalted, O Lord, in your strength. We will sing and praise your power." Now we finish up with our application today. You don't have to be royalty to worship God for the blessings that he's given you and the good things that he's put into your life. All of the blessings in all of our lives come from God. Our health, our families, our homes, our comforts, friends, food, vehicles, money, jobs, all of that is from God. If you wait to worship God until you're a king or a queen, you're making a mistake. And that's not what David intends here. He's giving everyone a pattern for worshiping God for the blessings that are in their life. And certainly, yes, David was sustained as king by God, but I think there's also to be a recognition on our part that really all of our lives are sustained by God, and all of our positions and all the things we have are sustained by God, and we're only what we are because God permits us to be those things. If you wait to worship God until you're a king or a queen, you're making a mistake. Worship God now for filling your life with good things. At every stage of your life, there's always something to give thanks for. David's situation may have been different than ours, but his example can be applied in every life.